Hey everybody, welcome to the Kelly Bailey Wellness Kitchen. Today what we're going to be making is something that I call it chicken parm pizza. It's basically a cross between pizza and chicken parmesan. So it is a healthier way to sort of get your pizza fix. So if you're, sometimes I'll just eat pizza. I'm a Chicago pizza girl. So if I want good pizza, I'm going to get a Chicago pizza from Chicago. But most of the time, if I just want the taste of pizza or if I just want the taste of Italian or chicken parmesan, I'm gonna try to make it a little bit more on the healthy side. And so this just kind of takes the edge off of that craving. So basically, we're going to be doing a pizza, except we're gonna use chicken as the crust. And I usually do something like maybe for my husband and my daughter, I might make them a little bit of pasta as a side. But I'm going to be making some zucchini noodles today with my spiralizer. And that's usually what I have as a side dish. So the first thing is actually very simple to do this. The first thing we're going to make is a very simple homemade red sauce. So that's what's going to go on top of our chicken parm pizza once the chicken is cooked. So we're going to start. You want a small to medium sized sauce pot. You will want a can of diced tomatoes, so no seasonings added in here, just straight up diced tomatoes. You want Italian seasonings. I like to add, like, you can buy the diced tomatoes with the seasonings in them, but I prefer to just add my own because I like to, that's just how I like to do it. I like to build the flavors to my liking. So Italian seasonings. I do typically add a little bit of red wine, but that's a totally optional ingredient. A clove of garlic. You can use more garlic or less, and you can also use garlic powder if you don't have any fresh garlic. Salt and pepper, and of course a good extra virgin olive oil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some olive oil into my pan here, probably about 2 to 3 tablespoons, maybe a little bit extra. And I'll usually allow that to heat up on medium to high heat. And then while I'm cutting up I'm gonna grab a knife here. That's what I forgot to do. This one's good enough. While I am cutting up my garlic, and you could, with this garlic, you could just dice it if you want a chunkier pasta sauce. So you could just cut it up into small pieces and toss it in the hot oil. I'm going to use a garlic press. So I am going to run over to the stove really quick, and I'm going to heat up this oil. We're going to go with the fast boil here. We'll go high. So I'm going to allow the olive oil to heat up. And then I am going to, I'm going to use my garlic press. I'm going to press the garlic into the hot oil. And I'm going to stir it a little bit. I want to make sure that the garlic doesn't burn. Garlic burns pretty quickly, so you need to kind of keep an eye on it with the hot oil. And as soon as I feel like the garlic is cooked, I mean literally usually 30 seconds to a minute while I'm stirring the garlic, I'm going to add just a little bit of red wine. You can also use red wine vinegar. You could use a little bit of sherry if you don't have any red wine. Or you can, if you don't want to use any of that, you can just dump your tomatoes, your canned tomatoes right in. So let's see here. I think we're still heating up just a little bit. I'm going to give it another second. Let's see here. There we go. And I'm going to toss just that's how I know if my oil's ready. I'm just going to give it a little bit of water there. Not quite ready yet. So if the water hits, a little bit of droplet of water hits the oil and it sizzles, then I know it's kind of ready. I better get myself a spoon. And I better grab my wine. These little bottles with the twist off caps are perfect. I don't use any fancy wine for cooking, just a simple, cheap wine for that. Let's try this again with the water. Just a little bit of water. All right, we're getting there now. It's starting to sizzle just a little bit. So I've got my garlic in my press. I'm gonna press it in there. Use my spoon to get some of that off. All right. If you're only using 1 can of tomatoes, so you can see it's really kind of sizzling here. I'm gonna go put it back on the stove. Gonna do this for about 30 seconds. I don't want my garlic to burn because that'll give it a really weird taste. Sizzle, I'm gonna leave it on the high heat. And we're gonna pour just, oh, you can even hear it. Just a little bit of that wine in there. All right, so that deglazes the pan if anything got burnt to the bottom. It's gonna cool down your garlic a little bit. I'm gonna turn this off for a second and I'm gonna bring it back over here. I would normally leave this on the burner, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So right now it's just olive oil, garlic, and a little bit of that red wine. I would leave this on the stove and then I'm gonna dump in my tomatoes. You could use tomato sauce for this, but I tend to like, I like the diced tomatoes because I like a chunkier tomato sauce. I'm gonna grab my spoon over here. All right, so I'm gonna mix that in. I'm gonna take probably 2 heaping tablespoons, and I'm just putting this right into my palm. I like a lot of the seasoning. Add a little bit more in there. Salt. I like things well seasoned with salt, so I'm going to put a good amount in, but if you are salt sensitive and you don't want to add salt, you don't have to. And I also bought no salt added tomatoes. So again, if you're salt sensitive, you can make this a little lower salt. So I'm going to mix this up now. I'm mixing all of these spices in together with the tomatoes and the olive oil, and the red wine and the garlic. And you can see there's a little bit, it's not super watery, but it depends on the diced tomatoes that you get or the sauce that you use. Certain brands have a little bit more water in them. This one's not too bad, but what I usually do is I will bring this to a boil and then I'll turn it down to a simmer and I'll allow it to reduce. So I'll cook it until it reduces by 1/3 to 1/2. So then I'm gonna get this really nice, thick tomato sauce that's gonna spread nice and easily without running over on my chicken Parmesan pizza. All right, so I am gonna stick this back on the burner so that it thickens up. I'm gonna let it reduce, and we are going to turn it way down to low. All right. All right. So once you've gotten that done, you're going to kind of clean off your workspace. And while that's all cooking down, you are going to get the chicken part of the dish ready. And this is kind of the fun part. So I like to, you can use any rimmed baking sheet. So in my house, I'm only feeding 3 people. So I've got 2 big chicken breasts that I'm gonna pound out thin, and I'm gonna put it into this medium to small size cast iron pan. If you have more people to feed, you can use more chicken than what I'm using here, and you can pound it out. You can use a rimmed baking sheet, and you can do a square pizza. You can use a bigger circular pan, as long as it has a rim. Because what we're going to find with this chicken crust is that as it cooks, some water's going to build up, and you may have to drain a little bit of water off of it. But if you don't have a rimmed sheet, it's gonna go all over your oven. So that's the other thing. You want to preheat the oven. I've got mine preheated to 450. You could do 425, 475. I usually don't remember that kind of thing, so I usually go with a nice even number of 450 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so I'm gonna put, I'm actually gonna oil my pan a little bit. That way it doesn't stick. I'm gonna grab this. Just gonna All I'm doing is kind of wiping the pan down, the cast iron down with some oil. That way, as the chicken cooks, it doesn't stick. All right, and now comes the fun part, if I can find, okay. If you have any latent aggression, you get to pound out your chicken. All right, we're gonna get some stuff out of the way here. But to do this, you still wanna make sure that you have some sort of a cleaner for after this, because chances are good that even though we're gonna cover the countertop with saran wrap, to pound out the chicken, you know, sometimes the juice gets on. So do make sure that you have a cleaner handy so that you can clean up after, especially since we're gonna be cutting up some veggies. All right. I'm gonna take one of these, we're gonna take the other one too. All right, so you're laying them out onto your saran wrap, and I'm even gonna just kind of fold the saran wrap a little bit, and then I'm gonna put another piece over the top. Saran wrap is not my friend. It's not my friend. It always wants to bunch up on me. There we go. Even with this handy little thing. All right. So I've got my chicken here, and I'm going to take a mallet. You can also use a hammer for this if you don't have a mallet. I'm going to use my mallet, and I'm going to pound these out pretty thin. So I've only got 2 chicken breasts here, and I want it to fit the bottom of my pan, and I want it to cook quickly, because usually I don't start dinner. We like to eat at about 5:30, and I usually don't start thinking about dinner until about 4:45. So I need this. Once I figure out that I'm doing this, I want it to cook really quickly. So I'm gonna pound these out pretty thin so that they cook quickly. This is why I lift the weights. Gotta put some muscle behind it. All right, it's amazing how much better you feel after that. Okay, now you gotta get it out of here. And this is the part, I hate dealing with raw chicken, but this is the part where usually you have to kind of use your fingers to get it all peeled off of that saran wrap, but you can see it's pretty thin here. And I'm just gonna you can also do this with ground chicken, ground turkey, ground beef. And you can just press the ground right into the bottom of a greased pan. But I do like to do it with a pounded out chicken breast. Okay, so you can kind of see I've got it in there sort of nice in a circular shape. It does tend to shrink up just a little bit when it's in the oven, so be prepared for that. But it usually maintains its shape fairly well. I'm gonna wash really good here since I was touching raw chicken. Okay, and then let's see if I can, here we go. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of my olive oil, and I'm just gonna put a little bit over this chicken, and I'm gonna use a baster. You can use a spoon if you want to, just to kind of make sure it gets spread around here a little bit. Okay. And then I am going to season a little bit. So a little bit of salt. And then a little bit of black pepper. You could add Italian seasonings to the top of this too, but I figure the sauce that I make probably has enough of the Italian seasonings in it. So I usually just salt and pepper, keep it simple. So this is gonna go in the oven until the chicken is completely cooked through. So since I've got mine pretty thin, this is probably gonna take somewhere around 20 minutes. And during that 20 minutes, I'm gonna cut up the veggies and the things that are gonna go onto my chicken crust pizza as the topping. So I'm gonna throw this in the oven right now, and we'll get started with cutting. And you can see, let's see here, my sauce is not simmering quite enough there.
The world could always use a little more kindness, a bit of patience, some understanding. In complicated or stressful times, great customer service can go a long way. Here's to all of those who make sacrifices for the greater good.
Thank you for calling Armstrong. My name is Christina.
My daughter happens to be one of them.
All right, so I've got the chicken in the oven. So our chicken crust for our pizza is in the oven right now. We've probably got 20 to 25 minutes. So during that time, and our sauce is simmering on the stove, during that time, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna cut up any toppings. So I do like to have a lot of veggies on my pizza. Now for today, for ease and simplicity, and it'll make it pretty, I'm just gonna cut up a few mushrooms. I'm gonna cut these grape tomatoes into some slices. And we're gonna use a little bit of fresh mozzarella on the pizza. You can use shredded cheese, shredded mozzarella. You can use whatever toppings you like. If you like pepperoni, you can put that on your chicken pizza. Whatever stuff you like. Sometimes I like to add more color. So, I've got an orange bell pepper here, but again, for ease today, I think we're just going to do mushrooms, tomatoes, and cheese. And I also usually like to use fresh basil. So this is like the idea of a margarita pizza. If you've ever had one of those, they're fantastic. I didn't have any fresh basil, so I just went with one of these basil pastes. So I'll probably put a little bit of that over the top once we get it out of the oven too. All right, so I'm gonna cut up some sliced stuff here. And one of the other reasons I like doing this kind of a pizza is, especially if you have kids, you can have them help you with this. Maybe not so much the cutting, depending on their age, but my 10-year-old daughter, she loves to put the toppings on the pizza. So I will let her choose what toppings she wants to put on her part of the pizza or on half of the pizza, or, and she's 10, so she can help me cut. So this is actually a good way, a simple way to get your kids involved. And one of the best things that you can do for your kids is teach them how to cook. It's a skill that they'll use for their entire lives, and hopefully it will help them be healthier and stay out of the drive-thru. Let's see here. So we won't need a ton of these, but again, I'm going to cut them into I'm cutting them into small slices. So we will spread those over the top of the cheese, and it'll just look kind of pretty. Let's cut up one more, and then we'll get started on the mushrooms. You could, I know this is like sacrilege for some people, but you could even, put things like pineapple on your pizza, but shh, don't say I said that. All right, cut up a couple of mushrooms here. But you can do any toppings you like. Like I said, I'm always cooking with a mind for health. So I like to put a lot of veggies onto pizza and into most of my dishes. We eat a lot of veggies. You should be eating, I know it sounds like a lot, but Dr. Mark Hyman, who is a Cleveland Clinic doctor, he's written some excellent books on eating for health. He recommends, and I've heard others recommend, that you should probably be eating a pound of vegetables a day. It's a lot. All right, so we've got a few veggies cut up here. I'm gonna put those to the side. And now what I'm gonna do, so like I said, we're still waiting for some stuff to cook. The sauce is still cooking down. I better go give that a stir. Cooking down there, it's starting to smell good in here. Pizza, the chicken is still cooking. We're waiting for that to cook all the way through. Throw this down here. We're gonna get rid of some stuff, get it out of the way. And now I'm gonna spiralize some zucchini. So if you are really into the health mindset, I always tell people to start experimenting with ways to maybe eliminate some of your more processed foods. So not all the time. Do I eat pasta? Sure I do. I just don't eat it very often. So in place of pasta, because what is pasta but a vehicle for sauce, right? So I'm trying to find things that can serve as a vehicle for the sauce for me. And so one of the things, I tried the spiralized zucchini noodles and I absolutely love them. I also love spaghetti squash. So today we're gonna use a spiralizer and we're gonna do some green zucchini and some yellow zucchini noodles. And like I said, my husband and my daughter, they're not so much into the zucchini noodles. So I just make them a little bit of pasta, no big deal. Takes an extra few minutes for me to do that. And I'm just gonna put these right into the bowl. Whoop. Don't go away on me. So there are different spiralizers on the market. I don't know what this one is called, but there's some good ones. This one's a little bit of a pain, but it does the job. So you can see here, turn it for you. It's just a crank job. Get some nice noodles out of that. All right. And then we're gonna go with the green. And it also gives you a nice bit of extra color. Just want to be careful that you don't cut yourself. This blade here on the other side is pretty sharp. All right, and so here are the zucchini noodles, and for me, that's about all I'll need. And I don't even cook them. I might lay them out on a paper towel. I'm not gonna worry about that today because they do contain some water. Sometimes when you put the hot sauce over them, it'll make it a little watery. So you can set these out and let them sit on a paper towel, and the paper towel will kind of draw some of that water out of them. But otherwise, I don't cook them. I don't warm them up. I just put my sauce right over them. And that's simple as that. And it's a healthier version of pasta. All right, let's take this. We'll just throw this right in the sink. All right, and then last thing we're going to cut up. Again, you can use shredded cheese, but for the purposes of today, I decided to go all fancy and get some ball mozzarella. So just going to cut the mozzarella into slices. So, and I try and make it pretty thin. But again, you don't have to be perfect. Probably about all I'll need is maybe half here. We'll just cut it all, just in case. Who doesn't like really cheesy pizza? All right, so we've got everything cut up. Now we're just waiting for the chicken to finish up. The sauce is probably just about reduced to where I want it to be, and we're about to make our pizza. All right, so our pizza is done and our sauce should be reduced enough. So we are gonna go ahead and we're gonna pull this, our chicken crust out of the oven, and we're gonna put the toppings on. We'll end up putting it back in the oven for a few minutes just to allow the cheese to melt. And then dinner is gonna be served. All right, let's see if I can do this without burning myself. Make sure that you're doing this in a safe way. Okay. All right, so sometimes, and I don't know why it is, but sometimes you'll get a little bit more water in your pan. I think I cooked it enough today where the water's pretty much cooked off. So sometimes I have to drain it a little bit and sometimes I don't. So I'm gonna cover these handles just a little bit because I will touch them without thinking. I'm gonna grab my sauce, which has thickened up pretty nicely. And now I'm gonna put some of the sauce over the pizza. I usually try and keep a little sauce to the side because if we're having, if my husband and my daughter are having a little bit of pasta, or, I've got my zucchini noodles, you certainly don't have to have those extra sides. Sometimes I will just make this and have it with a salad. But I do try and reserve some of the sauce just in case somebody wants some extra for something else. And the nice thing about this is if you make maybe a double batch of the sauce, it does freeze well. So it freezes well, it keeps well in the fridge, and you can have it for another meal or another pasta dish. And let's see here, we are going to set this back on the stove. All right, so we've got the sauce on the pizza. Now we're gonna take some cheese. We're gonna spread some of these nice slices of fresh mozzarella cheese on here. So if you've ever had a margherita pizza, this is sort of similar to that. It's my favorite. All right. Got those arranged. And now I'm gonna put on some mushrooms. And just like any pizza, if you've got somebody that doesn't like mushrooms, you can do mushrooms on half. Or you can put mushrooms over the whole thing. Or you could not do mushrooms at all if nobody likes mushrooms. But we tend to like some mushrooms. All right. So, and these are baby Bellas. All right, and then I'm gonna take some of the little tomatoes and you could use bigger tomatoes too, but my pizza here with my pan, again, I'm only feeding 3 of us. So this ends up being plenty and it's not very big. So I'm using these little tomatoes and it just kind of makes it look nice. I like pretty food. I think it tastes better when it looks nice. I don't always have time for that, but I try. All right, might as well use the rest of these little tomatoes. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put just a little bit of basil. So this is basil, like just paste. I am gonna put just a little bit over the top. If I had fresh basil leaves from our garden, which again, it's early spring right now, so nothing is growing quite yet, but I would typically take some fresh basil and I would cut it up and sprinkle it over the top and then add a little bit more fresh after we cook it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this back in the oven. I'm gonna let the cheese melt a little bit and then we'll pull it back out and it'll be about time to eat. And so if you left your oven running, you could just let the cheese melt in the oven. I actually turned on my broiler on high and I'm gonna stay close and I'm gonna keep checking it because I don't want it to burn, but that'll kind of make it, that'll make that cheese melt a little bit faster. So I've got the broiler on right now and I'm just gonna keep on checking it. All right, so I think that this is about ready. I'm gonna pull it out of the oven. Now, we're gonna cut it pretty quick here, but you might want to, if you're at home doing this, you might wanna let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, just to kind of let it cool just a little bit before you cut into it. That'll just make it a little bit easier to cut. Oh, but you can see she's a beauty. So like I said, you would want it to kind of stop bubbling, but what I am going to do is I'm going to dish out just a little bit of my noodles onto a plate here. Ooh, there's a lot of noodle there. All right, so I'm gonna dish out just a little bit of my noodles. This is my side dish. Counts as my veggie. Look, half of my plate, everybody, half of your plate should be veggies. So half of my plate is fibrous veggies, maybe even a little bit more. Okay, and now I don't think I have a pizza cutter. A pizza cutter is very helpful here, but if you don't have one, I'm just gonna use a good old knife. Try not to burn myself. I'm just gonna cut it. It usually comes out of these pans real nice. Ooh, and it is hot. All right, and you could cut them into smaller pieces. I usually cut smaller pieces for my daughter, but my husband and I'll have, you know, a good size piece here. So we're gonna put our pizza right there. I'm gonna grab a little bit more of that sauce for my zucchini noodles. And dinner is served. So this is a healthier version of if you've got a craving for pizza, or if you've got a craving for chicken parmesan and you don't necessarily want fried food, or you don't want all the breading that comes under the pizza. This is a healthier version that's gonna sort of take care of that craving. It's high in protein. You've got all of your, you've got a bunch of veggies going on here. So healthy fats, healthy proteins, healthy fibrous veggies, and dinner is served, and it's pretty darn tasty. So my name is Kelly Bailey. I hope that you found this useful, and I hope that you use this recipe for dinner sometime. If you want to get a hold of me, if you have questions about this recipe or anything else related to health and fitness, I welcome you to get in contact with me at kellybailey1980@gmail.com, or you can find me on my website, which is www.kellybailey.fit. Thank you.